This video is brought to you by the ReviewTyme podcast. Join Luke and Dom where we discuss in comical detail parks and attractions from around the world. 2 years ago, we released a video on Tokyo DisneySea declaring it the best theme park in the world. This made some people very angry, and every few weeks we will get an irate comment telling us how we're wrong, and if you look up the Magic Kingdom on Google, it actually has a better overall rating than Tokyo DisneySea, which completely invalidates ReviewTyme and we should feel terrible. But in an act of strength, I stand here today to once again declare that Tokyo DisneySea is in fact truly amazing. Not just because it is the greatest theme park of all time, but because it managed to survive a disastrous Disney decade that is considered by many to be the dark age of Disney theme parks. But the question remains, how did Tokyo DisneySea survive whilst Animal Kingdom, Disney's California Adventure Park, Walt Disney Studio Park, and Hong Kong Disneyland all suffered disappointing outcomes? It may interest you to know that the Tokyo Disneyland Resort is neither owned or operated by the Walt Disney Company, and is actually licensed by the Oriental Land Company, also known as OLC. In a nutshell, Disney designs the parks and attractions and provides its intellectual property to them, whilst OLC manages just about everything else from construction to day-to-day operations. The Oriental Land Company has rather unexciting origins, developing land in the Orient as a company. It was founded in 1960, where it developed Miyama, an area of land in Urayasu that was created through reclamation. In 1962, the Oriental Land Company slipped into Disney's DMs regarding building a theme park on their land, but Disney left them on scene until 1979, when an agreement was formed between the two companies to construct a Disneyland in Tokyo, which was mostly agreed to by Disney out of necessity to help fund Epcot, which was under construction and over budget at the time. On April 15, 1983, Tokyo Disneyland would open in Maihama, Japan. Oriental Land Company borrowed $1.4 billion for the project, which they managed to pay back in just 3 years. Whilst it was an original theme park in layout and scope, almost all of the attractions were variations of those already seen in Disney's lineup, and for good reason. Oriental Land Company were incredibly cautious about what they would build, and would often go with attractions which they could physically experience instead of embracing abstract ideas. Plans for a second theme park at the Tokyo Disneyland Resort began just 5 years later, in 1987, when the Oriental Land Company decided it was time to prepare for expansion. At the time, the Walt Disney Company was hard at work with Disney MGM Studios, and like a kid with a new toy, just had to show it off to OLC. Whilst they were originally on board with the concept and came up with the spectacular name Disney Hollywood Studio Theme Park at Tokyo Disneyland, trouble was looming around the corner. The lost decade is a period of economic stagnation in Japan between 1991 to 2001. When the country's strong economic growth ended abruptly at the start of the 1990s due to the reckless lending of many Japanese banks. As economist Paul Krugman explained, Japan's banks lent more with less regard for quality of the borrower than anyone else's. In doing so, they helped inflate the bubble economy to grotesque proportions. Once the bubble burst, things got bad and people got sad. These economic concerns only made the Oriental Land Company more cautious. When Disney MGM Studios opened, it had an extremely limited attraction lineup, and whilst Tokyo's version of the Hollywood theme park would have significantly more rides, attractions, and shows, they simply weren't willing to take Disney's word for the longevity and scalability of the design, and in 1992, the project was officially cancelled. Finally, in 1995, Disney would announce a brand new theme park that they were opening with the Oriental Land Company called Tokyo DisneySea, based around ports of calls both real and fantastical. But a lot of the details and concepts of this project were yet to be put in stone, and this was all happening whilst Japan's economy was still failing. The Oriental Land Company recognized that the Tokyo Disney Resort needed to expand, but even with this amazing concept from Imagineers, they were still incredibly skeptical of the idea, and highly cautious of anything that Disney gave them. Surprisingly, almost everything that was conceptualized for DisneySea as an original idea was grounded in existing and proven concepts, technologies, and experiences from the bottom to the top. Even the idea for the entirety of the theme park was based upon the previously announced and cancelled Long Beach, California DisneySea, with the original centerpiece being a giant lighthouse which would shine over everything. Whilst Westerners perceive a lighthouse as a beacon of adventure and guidance, the Japanese actually saw the building as being rather sad and melancholic due to the loneliness of the structure and the poor person maintaining it, and thus it was changed to Mount Prometheus, which got the ball rolling. But to really solidify the project, Imagineers needed to walk OLC executives through their properties and point out the concepts they were creating and have them realize that these weren't major abstract ideas, but were grounded in existing attractions or features present at Disney theme parks. Mount Prometheus is basically Cinderella Castle. Sinbad's Journey is Small World, Journey to the Center of the Earth is Test Track at Epcot, Aquatopia is Autopia on water, and the Indiana Jones ride is the Indiana Jones ride. Twice. It was after this that OLC was finally fully on board with the project, and in 1997 a licensing agreement would be officially signed between the two companies, with the theme park set to open in 2001 at a cost of $2.6 billion. To put that into comparison, Disney's California Adventure Park, Hong Kong Disneyland, Animal Kingdom, and Walt Disney Studio Park cost a roughly estimated $3.6 to $3.8 billion combined. So for around $1 billion more, the Oriental Land Company could have built 3 theme parks and an entire brand new resort in Hong Kong. Individually, no other Disney-funded project at the time came close, except for Hong Kong Disneyland at $1.7 billion. And even then, it was still around $1 billion less than Tokyo DisneySea, which was just a single theme park, whereas Hong Kong Disneyland was an entire brand new resort. But it wasn't quantity to the Oriental Land Company. It was about quality. Mount Prometheus is the backdrop to every land, and it has a quirk which not many people realize. Tokyo Disneyland's Cinderella Castle can be seen from almost every land in the park, and whilst it doesn't necessarily fit in the Old West or the Land of Tomorrow, we simply just end up accepting it. But what if, as you moved around those lands, the castle transformed to accommodate the setting they were in? That's exactly what Mount Prometheus does. It adjusts its design and shape to accommodate each land with such perfection that people don't even know it. From the entrance, it's a looming active volcano, but from the American waterfront, it's a mountain with smooth stones weathered by centuries of erosion. And from Port Discovery, it's almost alien in nature, peppered with grey flora and rockwork that mirrors that which you'd expect to see in a picture from Mars. And the great thing about this is that not everybody realizes it. I guarantee that a lot of people who have visited Tokyo DisneySea had no idea this was even a feature. And that's a great thing about detail. It's not meant to be seen. It's meant to be discovered. And discovery is the foundation of the 7 ports that Tokyo DisneySea opened with. Mediterranean Harbour is an adventure into European culture. American Waterfront explores the heyday of the United States seabound explorations. Mysterious Island immerses you inside a volcano set around a fictional world crafted by Jules Verne's stories. Arabian Coast takes you across the globe to the mysterious eastern deserts. Mermaid Lagoon is a fully indoor under-the-sea journey to the world of The Little Mermaid. And Lost River Delta is dedicated to the discovery of ancient worlds long forgotten. These lands are absolutely saturated with small, minute details where every time you visit, you're greeted by something which you've never noticed before, such as the sounds of the people rehearsing to perform in the theatre down the road from their small apartments in the New York harbourfront, or that there was a small vineyard near Zambini Brothers Ristorante that actually produces grapes, and that the lighting and sound rigging used in the park-wide entertainment literally lowers into the ground when it's not being used, so that you can see DisneySea for its perfection. It's simple but so effective, and it's one of the few theme parks in the world that I would be happy to not do a single attraction and just immerse myself in the world and the atmosphere the park has to offer. Oriental Land Company didn't set out to create just another addition to bolster Disney's lineup, but decided to build an incredible theme park first and a great Disney theme park second. They allocated a budget that was necessary to raise the bar and set the standard for the theme park industry for years, even decades to come. Each decade has its swan song, a theme park which defines the standards of the industry. The 80s had Epcot, the 90s had Disneyland Paris, and the 2010s had Shanghai Disneyland. But the 2000s had Tokyo DisneySea. And I think it managed to survive the problems that Disney faced in their 4 other theme parks which opened at this time because of hubris. Disney was content in their offerings, and if a single theme park failed, then they could always fall back on the monumental size of the company. Oriental Land Company's only product is pretty much Tokyo Disney. They don't have the luxuries that afford the Walt Disney Company to put out anything with sometimes reckless regard, and they understood that their audience visited their resort for a quality theme park experience. And from the day the gates opened, they provided exactly that. I imagine that over time, DisneySea will become a normality for the theme park industry, and its wow factor may eventually wear off as we travel the world and experience more unique and different offerings, but at this stage, it's hard to deny that Tokyo DisneySea is still the greatest theme park in the world. If you'd like to know more about Tokyo DisneySea, I highly recommend checking out our review from a few years ago. And also be sure to check out the new ReviewTyme podcast, where this week we talk in depth about Jurassic Park The Ride at Universal Studios Hollywood, available on Apple Podcasts or many other platforms. For the home of all things theme parks, I'm Dominic from ReviewTyme. Thanks for watching.